something that, reflecting where I've come from and my journey, it's so much more clearer and understanding my path. But I've had to look back and to reflect on my story to understand why I'm here and how I got here. something that, reflecting where I've come from and my journey, it's so much more clearer in understanding my path. But I've had to look back and to reflect on my story to understand why I'm here and how I got here. it's something that, reflecting where I've come from and my journey, it's so much more clearer and understanding my path. But I've had to look back and to reflect on my story to understand why I'm here and how I got here. it's something that, reflecting where I've come from and my journey, it's so much more clearer and understanding my path. But I've had to look back and to reflect on my story to understand why I'm here and how I got here. it's something that, reflecting where I've come from and my journey, it's so much more clearer and understanding my path. But I've had to look back and to reflect on my story to understand why I'm here and how I got here. something that, reflecting where I've come from and my journey, it's so much more clearer and understanding my path. But I've had to look back and to reflect on my story to understand why I'm here and how I got here.
everyone, and welcome to everyone who's coming to us today from right around the world. For those who are over in the US, Australia, Singapore, Indonesia, and of course everywhere else you are, welcome to my chat with the beautiful Gemma Manning, brought about by her awesome book about this girl. Now, just briefly before we start, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Oriel Morrison. I met Gemma first back in Singapore when I was living and working there. I was business news anchor for CNBC, and we met at an event that was put on by the Australian Chamber of Commerce. And of course, for those of you who know Gemma personally, it won't surprise you at all to know that she was absolutely the star of the show. I was lucky enough not only to meet Gemma that day, but also to hand over the award. She won the Entrepreneur of the Year award, which was such an honour, of course, for Gemma, and very, very well deserved. That meeting that day had such a big impact on me. Gemma and I connected again and again post that time. It's not often, I don't think, in life that you meet someone who you not only click with so quickly, but you know who just gets you and who supports you, no questions asked. And that is the beautiful Gemma, who is here today to share her story. Not just the wins, but Gemma's brave enough today to tell us about the trials and tribulations that have come along the way, so that we can all walk away with some of her insights, some of her courage, some of her knowledge, and be inspired, really inspired by what you hear today with this conversation with Gemma. Gemma, it is so brilliant to be here with you today. I'm absolutely honoured to be able to share this journey with you.
Thank you. I have to say it's such a pleasure to be here. And I think, as we were saying before we went live, I've been quite nervous about today because I'm so used to putting people in front of the camera and not being here live, kind of sharing my story. So, yes, maybe call it bravery, courage, plain old craziness.
Let's call it a bit of all of those things, I think. But, you know, if we start off with the book itself, which was such a beautiful read for me, who is a budding entrepreneur myself, and really just starting the journey that you've been on for a number of years. But the beauty about this book, it not only tells your story, but it's very raw, it's very open, very vulnerable. Just how difficult was it to sit down and write this?
Yeah, it was very, very difficult, and I think it took me quite a few years to make the decision to do it. There were a few events at the time that led me to writing about this girl. So firstly, I was talking at the Australian High Commissioner's residence here in Singapore at an International Women's Day event, and I was speaking to a group of women and just telling my story about how I got here. And then afterwards, I was blown away by how many women came up to say, like, Gemma, I'm just blown away by your story. It's inspirational. You should write a book. So that probably planted the seed, if you like. And then another number of events kind of happened, taking my daughter Charlotte to see Michelle Obama, the impact of seeing Michelle live here in Singapore, and the impact of Charlotte, my daughter, seeing that and knowing that I resonate so much with what Michelle was saying. Not enough female authors, not enough of us sharing stories. And I feel like it's my duty and responsibility to my two daughters mainly to be sharing my story and to be showing I'm going to use my voice. I teach my girls at home to use their voice, and that's something that I took away from the Michelle Obama event with her daughters, is she teaches her girls to use their voice in the home environment, because how else are they going to use their voice when they're out in the real world? So I think a number of these things were leading to me wanting to go, right, now's the time. Any earlier, I probably wouldn't have been ready to write the book. I felt like I was failing, if anything, not succeeding. So I had to prove to myself that I'd achieved what I set out to achieve here in Singapore before I was comfortable to put pen to paper. But writing it itself, so then that led me to going, okay, I'm going to write it. But then the pandemic hit. So I started writing the book this time last year, and I was on a high at the time because I ramped up, new global work coming in. I felt, you know what, I'm doing it. I'm kicking the goals that I've set out to achieve. Now's time to write it. And I'd started writing it, and then, you know, global lockdowns. And I remember this week very clearly. It was just before, I think, the rest of the world went into lockdown and before Australia went into lockdown. And I had call after call from clients, and it was a sense of dread that I had taking the call or the email, that it was, you know, Gemma, I hate to do this, but we're pulling back our spend. And it was, you know, a reaction from corporates going, you know, pandemic, quick. And so all of my businesses were impacted. Manning & Co. from a marketing point of view, with companies pulling back marketing spend. Gemstar in terms of not being able to physically bring people up to Singapore. Our masterclasses that are physically usually done face-to-face, not online. So I actually questioned, should I keep writing the book? I felt, oh my God, who am I kidding? I feel like a fake if I write this now when I feel like the rug has been pulled out underneath my feet. I guess the moral of the story is, well, actually, I remember I was going to come home as well. I phoned my mum and said, what do I do? Do I stay or do I come home? I had about a week to make a call. There was the last flight going from Singapore to Sydney, and it was like, do I get on that flight? And my mum said, darling, no, you've come this far, stay. Like, you've still got stuff to do up there, I know, so you stay. And so then chain of events, I kept writing it, and some amazing things happened during that time. So, but it's another example, I guess, of where you question and you doubt yourself. Yeah. And I think we all have those doubts.
We all do, I think, in every journey that we go on. Now, you mentioned your mum there very briefly and her support. I know that you talked about her in the book as well. She's always been a huge support to you, but you've formed this amazing tribe that you've had around you throughout every step of your journey. Your foreword was written by Ginger Jones, who I know shared part of your journey with you. The beautiful picture on the front of the book, which I've got right here, absolutely stunning picture of you on the front of the book, was also written by one of your very dear friends. Tell us a little bit about that.
Everything about the book, it had to be real, it had to be authentic, and that's the whole message of the book, is about being this girl, being comfortable in your own skin, embracing it. And so having people close to me who have been part of that and bringing them into the process of the book was incredibly important to, again, bring that element of authenticity. So my best friend Renee, I've known her since I was 12, and bringing her on board to do this was, that's a very personal thing to illustrate me, and having been best friends all these years to be brave enough to take on this job, if you like, or this request of mine. So having that was incredibly special, and I think talks to some of the incredible people that have helped me during the journey. So Renee being one of them, and my dear friend Ginger Jones. Absolutely, whilst we live oceans apart, she's in the US, a very successful businesswoman, but we share the same vulnerabilities, we share the same journey, being mothers, having these businesses that you've got to, show up every day, all of those things that go on as a female entrepreneur when you're also a mother, trying to do this. That's how Ginger and I connect. So, and I met her on the beautiful Necker Island with some amazing people. So having Ginger participate as well was absolutely key.
I wanted to talk about that, your experience in Necker Island, in just a little bit. But first of all, to how you started the book, which really resonated with me and had a huge impact. And you told the story about a Grab driver in Singapore. For those of you who don't use Grab or know Grab because you're in a different country, of course, it's the Uber one of the Ubers of Singapore. And this Grab driver was judging you because of your gender. And I was absolutely gobsmacked when I read his comment that men wouldn't find you attractive because you're too strong and you're too capable. I probably would have knocked him over the head and walked out of the car, but that wouldn't have been the right thing to do.
Not in Singapore.
Elegantly.
It was infuriating, though, to be honest, or also hence being a key story to open the book with. I remember coming into the office where I'm sitting in the Singapore office today. I remember coming in and being shaken by it and being really upset and talking to one of my staff members about it. And, and I guess it was his conversation was playing through in my mind. And I know, hey, I've come up against so many of these kind of situations as well. By now, I shouldn't let it get to me. But it did get to me because I thought, far out, like you're telling me I'm too strong, I'm too capable, and therefore not attractive, or that I'm going to make men feel intimidated because of that. You want women, and his conversation to me was, we want women to participate. They have to earn an income, so they have to pull their weight. But at the same time, we don't want them to be too capable, such as yourself, who's running these businesses. I was just like, I was like, why did I wanted to get out of the Grab, basically, and close the door on him. But it did rattle me, and I think it rattled me because I care about, I care about equality, and I shouldn't have to deal with that or put up with those conversations in this day and age. I didn't think I'd have to deal with it as an 18-year-old when I finished high school. And so here we are, all these years later, still having these conversations.
We are still having the conversations, and I know from my conversations with you that you are still dealing with that. Your first quote in the book is Michelle Obama. You talked about her before, saying there's no limit to what we as women can accomplish. You also talk about Kylie Minogue and what she means to you, because you see her so much more as an actress or a singer. She's so much more than that. She's also a businesswoman, a very successful full one, of course, and you've had a number of women, strong women in your life, setting an example for you.
Yeah. The book talks a lot about my heroes, people that I look up to, both my immediate family or friends, but also people maybe that, such as a Kylie Minogue, who I don't know, of course, but nevertheless, she's been a role model for me. So I think you can get role models and inspiration from anywhere in life. And I think the thing that resonates with Kylie, those on the call know I'm a tragic fan, especially those who know me very well. But it's more, one, I have to confess, we're the same size, and I'm very proud of that, in that we're these petite pocket rockets. And I think with her, she's had naysayers, she's had people pull her down, people who wanted to see her for what she is, as this, pop star, if you like. But she's prevailed, time after time. She has generated successful albums, hit after hit. Businesswoman, you can't underestimate, the power that she has in her. I think what I like about and what I draw inspiration from is she's authentic and true to herself, and has got to that point. So for me, I find, I listen to Kylie to those challenging moments. She's the music lifts me, if you like. It's kind of nurtures the soul. But, I speak of Michelle Obama. I speak of my Ginger, who I mentioned earlier, and my beautiful mum and my grandmother, who I never got to meet. But there's some very strong women around me who I draw strength from.
I just wanted to take a little sidebar for a second and just talk to our audience just for a moment to say that if there is any questions that you have for Gemma, if we do have time, we'll try and make time, but if we do have time towards the end of this hour, then we will certainly get to them. So do feel free to send them in. Gemma, let's start talking about your life story and how you wrote it in the book, and the timeline, because you were very serious about life. You were serious about success from very early on. To the point where you were selling your first apartment and buying your first house by the time you were 23. That is highly unusual. Certainly in my experience with my group of friends, we weren't doing that sort of thing for a long time after that. But you also had adversity in your younger years as well. You had your English teacher telling you you'd never be a journalist because you're no good at English, despite the fact that as a very young child, you were a storyteller.
Yeah. Yes, I think those early years, and looking back, you realize it really shapes you, and it kind of does have an impact on what your drivers are and what motivates you, and kind of shapes the journey. So writing about me as an entrepreneur, I've had to look back at those early years. And it's a good thing, and it's also a difficult thing at the same time. But looking back at it, I've definitely seen those moments where it really, it drove me. Any time in my whole life where somebody said to me, Gemma, you can't do something, that just does not resonate. I will dig deeper and I will find a way. So the example of my English teacher, I'll never forget it. These things you don't forget. And I think there's a lesson in that as well, in terms of how influential certain people are in your early years, that those people of power, such as teachers, might not always think about the impact of their comments or how they deal with students. It's interesting, Michelle Obama had a similar story of somebody saying that she wouldn't be able to study law at Harvard, yet her brother could. Something like that. So with this teacher, it gave me the drive, if you like. I was like, no, I'm going to do well. And it's the other story I mentioned in the book, actually, is when I grew up in Cairns. I spent a few years in Cairns, and I was 10, and I again will never forget it. And the teacher basically saying that there was this excellence awards at the end of the year and only boys could get it, kind of thing. So I won that award that year. So, anytime somebody says I can't, I will dig deeper to find a way forward. So I think all of that led into a very, my early years in terms of being a young adult were very accelerated in terms of, I was very focused on my career, very focused on, securing my financial independence as well. And that was a huge thing for me. I always had goals around saving money and being able to, be independent to do these things. I remember I funded my own trip to Bali as a 16-year-old. I said to Mum, no, I've been working my part-time jobs. I'm going to fund my school trip myself, type thing. So that's kind of been in me for as long as I can remember.
For those that are listening to this call today, Gemma, do you feel like this type of attitude and the emotion that goes alongside it is something that can be learned? I mean, looking at some of the stories in your book, including going to Japan and the trials that you had in Japan and how you succeeded there, and that's just one part of your life story. Is that sort of strength, can that be learnt, do you believe?
This is a tricky one, Ariel, because I often talk to my mum about this as well. So my mum, I think seeing my mum in action is where I get a lot of, I've had her as a role model to look up to in terms of looking at her strength and getting through different situations and how she dealt with it gracefully. And then I look at how I've gotten through these things as well. And I don't know the answer, to be honest, because I sometimes think, I don't know if you have to experience adversity in some shape or form to be able to understand grit and resilience and then have that strength, if you like. I don't know. I'm not sure, because I think in my case, I've had these things thrown at me quite often. And I do believe that that's given me the fire in the belly and the grit and the resilience that's helped me as an entrepreneur. So when we talk about entrepreneurship in our program, I'm very big on the traits of an entrepreneur. And yes, there's having a business problem to solve and, having a great business idea that stacks up. But for successful entrepreneurs who get through, you have to have these traits. You have to be able to be brave, be courageous, take risk, have strength, have inner resilience. And I don't know, I think that, sometimes having the moments where you fall down is not a bad thing if you pick yourself up and you take the positive with it. So I've always felt that anything that's been thrown my way, that's okay, because I think I have grown as a result of it each and every time.
There are some people here today with us that have read the book. There are others that probably haven't had the chance as yet. But tell us a little bit about what brought you to the path of entrepreneurship to start with, because you were working in corporates, you had experience in corporates, you'd done very well. And in fact, that probably was part of the problem, was that you were doing so well at such a young age, and not everybody liked to see that. But you were very secure in what you were doing. Entrepreneurship, of course, is a very different path. So tell us a little bit about your journey getting to when you made the decision to go out on your own.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because I loved my early corporate career. I absolutely adored and loved every moment of my early time at a pharmaceutical company or a clinical trial research organisation. And then I went into management consulting. And within a short, my corporate career was very accelerated. I was, in a big role at a young age, but I think I had some real champions around me, and they were my bosses. So every role I had, a role was created for me at the company that I first went into, because the person who was interviewing me saw something in me and wanted to create another role entirely. So I've had these amazing opportunities because people believed in me and gave me challenges, and I rose to the challenge. So I was extremely happy when I went. So, I should say, that during my last corporate job, that's when I fell pregnant with my first daughter, Charlotte. So I was all good up until that point. And then my main champion, if you like, when I went on maternity leave, he was no longer in the business. And to cut a very long story short, basically, when I went back, and I went back very early on, so I didn't actually have much maternity leave. Charlotte was a baby. I think it was 4-6 weeks type thing. I was starting to do work again from home, fitting it all in around feeding her and attending to her as a new mother, but did some of my most successful work during that time. Then I had a boss, unfortunately, who came in and, dare I say, was a real male chauvinistic something. And
something. Yes, we understand.
Yes. And made it, pretty much forced me out, made it very difficult for me to stay in that role, which was heartbreaking. I think it took me a long time to reconcile that, and writing the book and having to write about it as well, because that was the change of path for me. So you talk about, yes, I was in this secure early career, and actually I didn't want to go into my own business because I had seen how ugly it can be and hard it can be by growing up around business. But the chain of events, I started Money & Co. off the back of, that kind of situation, which, as I said, took me a long time to overcome that and to think that was happening in this day and age. However, you don't dwell on these things. If anything, I was, new path. The boss that I'd mentioned, who was very supportive of me during that time, and then when I went on maternity leave, he was my first client. And so I started actually flying up to Brisbane. My first client was a telco in Brisbane. And so that's how Manning & Co. started. And I think once word got out with all my corporate colleagues there in Australia, I grew my client base really quickly. I wasn't expecting the fast growth that I experienced in those first early years. And here I was thinking, oh, I've got to keep the money coming in. I've got to keep working. I didn't have the luxury or a chance to not work. I had to work. So starting Manning & Co. with this flagship client was like my solution to keeping my skills up to date, keep the money coming in. But little did I know that I was starting something that would get me here today, 13 years later. I didn't think of that at the time. It was just more survival. I would say it was that kind of sense of pick yourself up, let's get through this, and Manning & Co. was born.
And it wasn't, it wasn't obviously just about yourself either, was it? I mean, you had your family relying on you for much of your time with Manning & Co. You've been a single parent, so it's not only the fact that you're running a business as a female in a very male-dominated world, still as it is today, but you're also doing it as a single mother for much of the time. Yeah.
So I think also that, I guess the common theme is in like resilience and grit. And I think when you're then in a situation where, hey, I have to do this because I've got my two beautiful daughters and others who rely on me, that, yeah, and there was no option really. Actually, in a way, that's how Gemstar came to be. I knew that during this time when I did become, a single mother, when my, parted ways with my ex-husband, but we're very good friends and we co-parent and we're incredibly close, but nevertheless, any breakup is always hard. And so during that time, I had to, I guess maybe you call it resourcefulness as well, but for me, I was like, okay, well, I have to rely now more on Manning & Co. because of my situation. In those early years, when you've got two incomes coming in, sure, if you have a tough moment in business, you've got another income to defer to. When it was on my own, totally, it was like there's not a safety net. I have to survive. And Gemstar was some bubbling away around this time. And that gave me the motivation. Once again, being in a situation where I had to survive, that really made me want to create a second company. And that's how Gemstar, in a way, amongst everything else that was going on around that time, that's kind of how Gemstar came to be.
I recall you talking about the fact that you had to make an incredibly difficult decision to miss one of your daughter's first day at kindergarten in order to go to a think tank in Antarctica. And, for some out there, that might be a no-brainer, an easy decision to make. But I can only imagine from my perspective how difficult that must have been.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of those moments as a female entrepreneur and as a mother, a mumpreneur, if you like. These moments of, again, like what do you do? Because when you're in business, you know that every opportunity counts. But you're often at conflict because you wear all these different hats. You're a mother, a daughter, a sister, a partner. I show up every day to my clients. My clients expect stuff from me. My staff do. So when you're at the crossroads of these decisions, if you like, I knew that I couldn't miss Antarctica, but it was very difficult. And again, I always go back to mum. So mum, what do will Amelie hate me for the rest of her life if I'm going to miss her first day of kindy? And my mum said, no, darling, she'll forget all of that. Don't you worry. You go. But sure enough, Amelie still 11 years later likes to remind me that I missed her first day of school. I'll never live that down.
Well, you do need to get her a new iPad because you missed her first day of kindergarten. She's a smart girl. It's obviously a life story, a life journey that you've been on, and you tell it so beautifully in the book. It really is a story of your life. Your move and your expansion, your business expansion into Singapore was a real cliffhanger for me as I was reading the book. We've just talked about the burden of paying for your family and taking that on by yourself. If something goes wrong, there is no safety net. I found that hard enough a burden to bear while I was working for a corporate. You did it completely on your own. What got you through that first year? When you moved, you were having all the trials and tribulations of an international move, and then you had additional hardship as well.
The first 2 years of my move here to Singapore, I think, were the hardest professionally that I'd ever experienced. And I think thinking back to it, it was because I started to take far more risk than I had in those early years. In the early years, my life complicated maybe in some ways, but I had one office, I had one company, I had my family around me. So it was a bit more of a safer environment. When I moved to Singapore, I was risking everything. And so I think once the risks are higher, there's obviously a lot more at stake. So to actually do what I'm doing, to be sitting here today, I sometimes pinch myself and think it's incredible, because of what I've endured to make that happen is not your everyday thing. So just the technicalities of moving my children here. I mean, for those of you who don't know Singapore or here, as a foreigner, like, you've got international school fees to contend with. You can't just send your child to the local school. So say you're looking at 80 grand for 2 children to go to primary school at an international school. As an entrepreneur doing this, you just don't have that, that kind of backing, if you like. You don't have those resources. All ready to move to Singapore, I remortgaged my home. I put it all into the growth of my business, and nothing went right. Nothing went right when I moved here. And you think I moved my girls here, the expense, the fact that I had to homeschool my girls for the first 9 months, because I couldn't afford the school fees here. And I remember, actually, I don't write about this in the book, but I remember having my first panic attack actually here, and it was out of my our old office. I'm in another office at the moment, but our first office here, it was all too much. I had the stress of the homeschooling. I had opened this centre up here with a handful of clients signed in. None of those clients, for whatever reason, ended up coming on board. So here I am, the infrastructure costs, the fact that I had taken this very bold, gutsy move to come here, and then all personally, maybe in the business community, people wouldn't have seen the sacrifices I had to make to do this. But inside, I was crumbling. So I remember having to, I walked out of the office one day and I just wanted to cry. Like, I can't breathe and I need to cry. And where do I go for that? Because I've got people in my office. I had some visiting clients up. I had staff there. I had a helper or a tutor at a small apartment we're at with tutoring the girls for school, and I didn't want them to see me break down. And here I sat in a Grab just crying, thinking this Grab driver must think I'm absolutely a crazy woman. But yeah, it was incredibly, I was like, what the hell have I done? Like, this is maybe one of my worst decisions. However, I mean, again, that's almost 4 years ago. And then there's all these other stuff that happened during my time here to kind of come out of a very challenging, where I felt like every other day I had to pick myself up. Like, honestly, those 2 years, there was 10 things every day. It wasn't just normal, like, hit you down type thing, which I'm used to. So I'm okay with being knocked down. Like, that comes with the territory. I'm okay with that. But this was very intense. This was more at risk, more people to consider, new markets, more cost pressure. It was a whole other ball game. And I mean, I've survived to tell the story, but I think it's how you respond to those moments. Because sure, quite a lot I've wanted to give it all in. You know what? Money & Co, Gem stuff, like, can't do it anymore. Too hard. So there's definitely been those moments, but I think it's how you respond. And this is a true sign of a strong entrepreneur, I think, is that you've got that resilience to keep getting up. And I sometimes don't know how. I really don't. But as I said, I'm here to tell the story.
You are here to tell the story, and you've been even more successful since that point. But it was shortly after that you took another few hits. I mean, you've just described how incredibly exhausting and difficult emotionally that period of time in your life must have been. But it wasn't just opening in Singapore. It was then another expansion to the other side of Australia, where you took hits on that expansion too, and that was opening up Perth, a whole new experience for you again.
Absolutely. So I again, looking back and writing the book, I had to relive a lot of stuff. To be honest, I blocked a lot of, it was a 2-year window. It was really 2017, 2018 and into 2019. But those years I had endured so much that I'd blocked a lot of the actual events of that time to deal with it. And writing the book, I haven't actually relived it all. I could have written a lot more, but I relived some of the key things that I felt like that illustrated, I guess, those knocks, but also that highlight the dirty nature of what you do come up against in business. And I guess part of the book is also questioning, and part of how I've been is I challenge the status quo, and I don't want to accept that business has to be like that. So for me, it's about bringing ethics back into business is a huge thing that's important to me. But during that period of expansion and taking more risks, calculated risks, but at the same time, stuff that you can't totally forecast, that can go, things that can go wrong. I just remember kind of, moments that were very, very difficult. But me being disillusioned by the people around me, by the institutions, by government, by, I was just like, I can't believe some of this stuff actually is happening. But I think during that period, and I write obviously a lot of these stories in the book, I put my head down, I cut out, and this is one of my messages, if you like, or something that we also talk about in the entrepreneurship program that we run. You cut the naysayers. There are so many people who want to bring you down, and I have experienced that firsthand. And I think you've got to learn where to cut people out that are not good for you, institutions, organisations, other people that you just go, you know what, that you're not good for me in my journey and my path, so therefore, no. And I did that. I had to cut certain things out. But do you know what? By doing that, that is when I got my success. So, I mean, by me blocking out the noise and not focusing on what others were doing, I focused in on, okay, where are the opportunities? What do I need to focus on? And go with it. And I put my head down. I disconnected myself from quite a lot of the community and different people during that time to really just be focused and not let the noise get to me. And I think that is why we've kind of gotten through that, and we're, on a very strong growth trajectory now. But I had to endure, I think it was more disappointment, let me just say that, disappointment with a lot of what I was seeing, and dirty tactics, just bullish behaviour, stuff that I don't want to take party to. I won't.
You said in the book, you talked about being disappointed. One of your comments in the book was that you get deeply disappointed with people in business at times, obviously. And you've also said that you feel like you've always had to have your boxing gloves on and watch your back. Do you, with all the experiences that you've had that you've been talking about today, do you still feel that way? Is it less of an issue the more successful you get? Is it more of an issue the more successful you get? Or is it just a realization that disappointment to a certain level is always going to be there?
I think it's a realization that there's going to, the light bulb moment for me is not everybody acts like me or thinks like me or has got the same values or same ethics. And that is disappointing, because sometimes I just think, well, surely that's how you do business. Surely when you're working in a partnership, X, Y, and Z happens because isn't that good values, or isn't that, what you should be doing? So I think what I have learned is, I think when I come across people who think like me in business and have got the same values as me, then I'm drawn more to those partnerships now. I think I have learned to kind of see through stuff, which I'm a very trusting person. So to be honest, sometimes I'm too quick to trust things because I think you're going to be the way I am. So maybe that's a weakness of mine. Maybe I'm a bit naive in that respect, being too trusting. So I think what I've learned is to have my guard up a little bit, which is not so natural for me because I am very, as I said, trusting and welcoming and inclusive and all of that. But in some situations, I've had to have my guard up a little bit, and that is where I have cut or made me and the business very focused on certain areas. And again, I've learned to probably just see where those disappointments are going to, I think my radar is probably more in tune now to these things, so I can at least detect it as much. But I mean, I wouldn't say, I think because of changing path, if you like, or tactic on how to achieve my goals with Western Australia or Asia, I think that has helped me steer clear of some of the things that I was experiencing in those first 2 years of both going into the two markets and having these incredible hurdles thrown at one that, it was like David and Goliath, fighting the big guys.
Yeah. And it's very much, it's not, you know, the sort of issues that you're describing, it's not just a level of disappointment on a business sense, you know, you didn't win the deal that you were hoping to win. It's also very much an emotional disappointment that you go through, especially when this human level of interaction, we're talking about that as well. Yeah. I mean, what stopped you at that point when you were at your lowest from just shutting up shop and walking away? What was it that got you through that incredibly difficult time, or times, because it happened more than once?
I think it's my fighting. I think it's just innate in me. It's this sense of I just can't give. Like I'm maybe a high achiever. I'm somebody who, once I achieve my goals, then I'm okay with stuff. And what's kept me going is during those moments I hadn't achieved what I'd set out to achieve. I've risked so much coming in to those markets, personally, financially, you know, putting everything on the line, that sense of maybe stubbornness going and determination. I'm going to get there. I just have to find the right way to get there. And for me in Singapore, so I've been living here for 4 years, and, you know, I'm absolutely, again, I can stand and tell the story. I've got great clients. I've won an iconic Singapore company during the pandemic. I feel like we've carved out a solid name. We've got accolades, awards, and yes, we're doing it and we're being recognised. But I had to go through all of that to get here. And so I guess that is the highs and the lows. But I think, unfortunately, we don't talk enough about that journey or the trials and tribulations that one goes through to do this.
Yeah, there's a big question for you here, which I know if it was asked of me, it would be very difficult to answer. But would you have done anything differently? Like if you knew then, you know, even as 3-4 years ago, if you knew then what you knew now, how differently would you have tackled those situations, if at all?
Yeah, I think there's learnings for sure. I probably wouldn't have it any other way. However, I think the people that I would have chosen to have around me during those expansion moments, I would select different people and different organisations or partnerships, if you like. So I think I learned quickly during that time who to avoid in my future business dealings, if you like. That's a learning that, yeah, if I had probably had that insight coming up, then I maybe my path would have been a bit more straightforward up here. But I don't think I could have done it any differently, because that's also my own growth through those. Like, you have to sometimes have those moments and those failings. And I wouldn't say it's a failing necessarily, but I guess it's those moments where stuff's just not going right. And, you know, you've got to take some learning from it. So, yeah, no, I wouldn't do it any differently. I'm glad that it's happened in that I've learned a hell of a lot. And I've grown as a person, I've grown as an entrepreneur and as a businesswoman as well.
You know, we've talked a lot about mentorship and your tribe throughout your journey. You've been exceptionally lucky, well-deserved, I should say, not by chance, to have some incredible mentors around you, both on a personal level. You've talked about your mum a few times, and your grandmother as well, but on a business level as well. And you've been one of the very few people that have been honoured enough to go to Necker Island. Talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, I know that our viewers would love to get a little bit of insight of what it's like to be around an entrepreneur like Richard Branson.
I want to say, if Fiona's on the call, a big thank you to Fiona and a few people who I'd met. Actually, my journey to Necker really started in Antarctica, where I was very fortunate to meet the CEO magazine, Chris, the founder. Has written a testimonial in my book as well. But he put me up for going to Necker. I had to go be vetted and go through a process, but it was to pitch or to unearth my social impact venture, Light Years, which is to help vulnerable women. So that's the next chapter, if you like, is around Light Years. But to get there was just incredible. Like, it was those moments of the right network, the tribe. I get so much from that because of all the other stuff that goes on. To be around like-minded people where you speak the same language, it's immensely lifting for me, and it's probably given that extra spark along the way, or that extra little bit of something that I've needed to keep going on this crazy journey. The people that I met on Necker, lifelong friends like Ginger, as I mentioned, Fiona, Amanda, so many people that I've had the chance to meet. But Richard himself, an incredible, humble person. I took a lot from him. I actually risked more after going to NECA. That's really when I came into Singapore. So I think as an entrepreneur, that was an influence, definitely, or an instrumental part of the story, is having the bravery and courage to go, okay, I'm going to do this and really, really give it a good shake in Asia. So that was key in the timeline, if you like. But I think what I took from the beautiful people and everything I met and meeting Richard is a sense of humility and this sense of, what I don't often see in business world, unfortunately, but yet here on NECA I was getting from some very successful people, just a sense of purpose and a sense of passion. And that's what we actually also teach in our entrepreneurship program, is when you're around entrepreneurs who are risking it all and there's something special in that. They're people who care about making change in the world. They have purpose. And I gravitate towards that. I gravitate towards people who do care about things and do have a purpose with their business ventures. I find that hugely uplifting. And what they say is what goes on NECA stays on NECA. There are a few wild moments here or there, or those types of things. Patron for breakfast, bit of tequila.
Well, you've got to have fun while you're working hard, don't you? I mean, all work and no play and all of that. So, Gemma, was this part of the start behind, or the spark, I should say, behind Young Gems? I mean, this is an incredible program that you've started. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Young Gems started when I moved here to Singapore, and I was approached to teach young entrepreneurs, if you like, on the back of what we were doing with bringing companies up through the Gemstar business into Asia. So I created the program using a lot of our own IP. So essentially what we do in Manning & Co. is one whole component of our Young Gems program. So when we analyse the top reasons why startups fail, number one is often there's no addressable market. And that comes back to some key marketing 101 things that, as a marketing company under Manning & Co., we obviously kind of live and breathe that stuff. So to cut again another long story short, though, I had the opportunity. I created this program. It was turned into a diploma here in Singapore. But we also, me being very passionate about inclusive entrepreneurship and making sure that we have a level playing field, we've taken this program into more of those, bringing it or making it more accessible to other communities, such as the deaf and hard of hearing, or the migrant community there in Western Australia. So for us, it's more than an entrepreneurship program. I find that it's almost it's a transformational program, if you like. And I often say, if I wish I'd had a course like that when I started out, because it's taken me 20 years to understand more about me and how I operate as an entrepreneur. In our program, we actually start with the entrepreneur in you. We look at what makes you, what are you passionate about? What do you care about? What makes you tick? What gets you out of bed in the morning? So we spend a lot of time understanding about you, because as I'm describing in this story today, it all shapes how you are in your business journey, or how you are as an entrepreneur, and what level of risk appetite you'll have, and all those types of things. So there's something beautiful that has developed out of Young Gems. The program name in the deaf and the hard of community in Australia is called Hidden Gems. But it's something I'm incredibly proud of. I talk about a story of when I gave the opening address in Western Australia for the Hidden Gems community, and I felt like my grandmother, who I mentioned very briefly, was there with me, because little did I know, actually, when I won the program for Hidden Gems, I called my mum, and Hidden Gems was a turning point, actually. It was around winning Hidden Gems that we kind of got that next big lift, if you like. And I was, overwhelmed with joy. And so my mum said, "Darling, do you know that your grandmother employed deaf and hard of hearing in her businesses?" So my grandmother was a woman well ahead of her time, who had been running businesses in the 50s and whatnot. Incredible woman who unfortunately I never got to meet. But I felt like I was, in a way, carrying her legacy by this program. I didn't realise it, and there's no way I could have known that, and I didn't know that part about her and her business. I felt like there was a very deep connection to this particular program, and I felt like she was there with me when I was delivering that address.
Yeah, that's an amazing connection. Can you, if you were asked by somebody today, and it doesn't matter whether you're male or female, if you're a single parent and you're going on an entrepreneurial journey, can we have it all? Like, is there any reason whether, female or male, we can't have it all? Juggling parenthood and business and everything else that life throws at you.
I know I'm doing it, but there's a lot of hard work. There's a lot that goes into having it all, and you've got to balance it all and to juggle it all. Sometimes you have to, pull back in other areas. I think sometimes what I struggle with, I think, is I try the best to be the best mother I can. I try the best to be the best daughter, the best sister. As I said, I wear all these different hats. And sometimes, we beat ourselves up, and sometimes I think I could be doing better at this or I could be doing better at that, but I can't be everything to everyone all the time. You have to kind of, balance that, I guess. So I think, I do, it's an I have to be incredibly organized to be able to do this, to be able to do what I'm doing. I have to have stuff, in order, both in my home life and here in the office. Otherwise, if it gets too chaotic, I do freak out about all the stuff I've got going on. So I think there are tactics and things and tools and ways that you learn how to deal with it and how you can do it. But it's not easy. I think my path is a less traveled path in a way. And as much as I'd love to have the easier path, this is my path for a reason, obviously.
What do you want for your girls, Gemma, when you look at the experience that you've had and the life that you've led? Your beautiful girls, Charlotte and Emily, what do you want for them?
I want a level playing field, is what I want. And I thought I would have that when I was an 18-year-old going off to Japan, because I was told at high school that, if you have a good education, for me, I thought I did really well in my TER. I had my speak another language. I had my my university degree. Here I am, world. I'm ready to go. I wasn't prepared for the glass ceiling. I wasn't prepared for still the gender inequalities that exist. I wasn't prepared for it because I wasn't, for my generation going through, it was as if, there is equality. So getting out into the ugly world and experiencing firsthand, I don't want things to be easier. I don't think that's the answer. I think it has to be fair and there has to be a level playing field. So that's what I want for my girls. I think by me fighting for stuff, I could have easily gone, this is too hard. Let me go back into corporate, or let me just time out. This is too, what I'm doing is I'm really going up against it. I'm trying to change the game at the same time, and I'm often in uncharted territory. It would have been a lot easier for me not to take on these challenges and all of this. But I think the girls, they see me in action. They see I put my money where my mouth is. I'm not just talking about it, I'm doing it. And I know that as they're growing into the gorgeous young ladies they are, and I'm obviously very proud of my girls, they just, I can see it coming out in them as they're getting older. I can see how they feel about things that might be unjust or stuff that's going on and what they're going to do about it. I can see that they care about the world around them, and that they, if they care about something and have purpose, they're going to take some action to do something about it. So I think hopefully by the fact that the girls have been around me in business since they were in nappies, I think that it's been a positive thing, and that I think I'm hopefully setting them up for a more equal future, hopefully.
Well, it's only by taking action, by talking about things like this, that you can affect change, and that's exactly what they're watching you do even today, and by writing your book about this girl. Now, Manning & Co. turns 13 in March, so next year. Gemstars 8. You've got a second book coming out at the end of the year. What does the future hold for you?
I'm sure my clients on the call today are probably hanging for that. I'm not going anywhere, don't worry. Not yet. I still have a lot of unfinished business in both those businesses. I feel like Manning & Co. has got a new lease of life. It's constantly evolving, but after 13 years I'm delighted. It's my baby. I feel very passionate about the Manning & Co. business, what we do, how we do it, how we deliver our work, the partnerships we have. The fact that we're working across the region, all of those things. So for me, there's a lot there that we still need to look at for Manning & Co. Same for Gemstar and Young Gems. Probably, if anything, I want to take Young Gems globally, and digitally, that has helped us to really kind of set it all up so that we can scale that program internationally. The third thing, though, I mentioned light years before, and I guess that is really my passion project and something that I'm so deeply I care about, and I want to, and it's what I pitched to Richard Branson or shared on my time at NECA. So I'm taking steps to do a pilot program of that in Singapore, and then we'll look at taking that out. The premise of that is to really work with vulnerable women and be able to give them a safe platform for growth and development. And we've kind of been building over the last few years the core building blocks. Our Young Gems program is our education platform, if you like, to be able to empower people in this way. So watch this space. That's what's coming next.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm also very much looking forward to that second book that you're writing amongst all of these other amazing things that you're doing. Gemma, I just wanted to take a couple of the questions that are coming through,
Sure.
so we can get to some of our viewers. They've got a few questions are coming through, actually, but I think this is probably pertinent to what you're doing and how you've lived your life. But how has becoming a mother shaped the kind of business person that you are?
It's being a mother has been a huge. I became an entrepreneur as a mother, so I didn't know life as an entrepreneur before becoming a mother. So it has been part of me in my entrepreneur journey the whole time. I think I've introduced into my business a real sense of nurture and care, and that's probably because that's how I am as an individual and as a person. Becoming a mother, that nurture and that care, went through the roof type thing. It goes to another level. So I think I bring that into the business. I think I also, because I care about their future, the ethics that I bring into the business, the way I want to do business, all of that, is for them and since becoming a mother. But it is they're my pride and joy, the girls, and being mum to them.
Well, the sort of, I suppose, leads us on to the next question, which is that's come through from the audience. Of all of the achievements throughout your life that you've mentioned in the book, what's been the biggest highlight? You've sort of answered that in saying that obviously your girls. But from a business sense, let's put it in that form.
I think Singapore, and definitely what I'm achieving here is because it's been a hard journey and all the sacrifices I've spoken about and whatnot, to be where we're at and to be kicking the goals we are, I'm immensely, it just shows, and I wish I could kind of show or turn around the screen to see what I can see from my office. But every day of being in this office, it's my happy place because it reminds me of what's possible. So Singapore for me represents to me as in my own entrepreneurial journey what's possible, because I've done it. I've done it. I've endured it all. I've built a sustainable business. I can say hand on heart, if I had to go home tomorrow, I've achieved what I've set out to achieve here in Asia. So that definitely is a highlight. Also, my Young Gems program. I'm again so proud to see our Young Gems come through. How they, being able to teach and educate and mentor in a way that I feel is missing in some of the programs, having that level of care and nurture. Is what I think people thrive on as well. So they're just two. There's a lot of other highlights, but they're two that stand out.
Is there any particular Young Gem that's come through the program that has really just resonated with you on an emotional level?
A few, yeah, definitely. Adam on my team, who's coordinated today for us, Adam's on my Gemstar team. He's a Young Gem. So, Adam's been with me for 3 years. It shows the power of also what we give our Young Gems. Everything I do in business, I'm about walking the talk and being real and not being fake. My Young Gems are the best hires, to be honest. Our Young Gems, they've going through the program. I think they've got what it takes. They've got a good grasp of what it takes to run a business through the skills and the knowledge that we share. But there's that sense of nurture, I think, that, again, helps our Young Gems to discover more about themselves and their own journeys. So, yeah, very warmed by our Young Gems program.
I've got another question coming through. What do you envisage the business to be like in 5 years? Question.
Yeah, I wonder if that's from one of my team members. Trying to get a sense of where we're going. No, for 5 years, I want to see Young Gems globally in every market. That's my big ambitious goal. I'd like to see Light Years having been launched and being more in action. I mean, I see myself in 5 years still running the businesses as they are, but just probably more growth and in international expansion. Ask me what I'll be doing in 10 years. I don't know. 10 years is too far in the distance, but what I would say is running a business, like the businesses I run are very demanding, intellectually stimulating in terms of they're thinking. I'm in consulting, and there's a lot of thinking that goes into this. So a lot of thinking every day, thinking for clients, marketing strategies. You have to always be on. So let's hope that I can keep my onness and this brain going for another 10 years, because it's every single day across a lot of different stuff. But we're all going in the right direction.
Zero doubt at all that will be a problem for you, Gemma. Absolutely zero. Now, we did touch on this earlier on, but we've had a couple more questions come through on this particular point, so I don't think it hurts to sort of revisit it. But the question is, how do you keep the resilient mindset that you have in the face of adversity? Another question, that you've had plenty of setbacks. How do you keep going? I mean, there's a real familiar theme about it. So let's go back there and listen to what really drove you through the very difficult times that you've had.
So having some really key people around me and having people who believed in me has been part of that. So, I mean, every day I've got my girls that is a reminder to me of this responsibility and this doing it for them. So there's that, my girls. My supporters, my mum and others around me, they keep me going when times are, because yes, when you have those setbacks, you need people around you who believe in you and who will say, you know, Gemma, it's okay, you keep going. I guess what you have to keep in mind when you're a business owner doing this, it's a very lonely job. It's incredibly lonely. And when you're then taking these massive leaps and trying to climb a mountain that you feel like others haven't climbed before, where do you go to? You know, like it sometimes feels like, yeah, I'm on my own. So having those people around me, whether it be my partner, my mum, my loved ones, are absolutely core. They kind of give me that strength and nurture that I need to front up, because if you think about it, I'm the business Gemma, and most people on this call will have a particular view of me because they see me a particular way. I'm the strong one. I'm the one who's capable. I'm the one who, you know, from the outside, it can look very glamorous and very, oh, she's a, you know, wow. But I guess when you're going through it and you know what really happens every day and what really it's all like, having a good support network is absolutely vital. I'd just like to also mention like the likes of my lovely Robert De Niro, Phil Forrest, for example. So those of you who've seen the movie The Intern, you know, I sometimes think of my Singapore journey a little bit like that movie. So Phil is my non-executive director here, and he and others have been absolutely, just by believing in me when others haven't, or when others have tried to dismiss me as the little businesswoman who doesn't know what she's talking about, which often happens, or people think I'm the marketing manager of my own business, or they think I'm the event manager or PR manager. Surely she can't be the CEO. So, and I've had plenty of moments, obviously, that I talk about in the book with people bypassing me to speak to a male colleague, for example, and not even registering that I'm the CEO and founder. So there are those moments all the time. So having the likes of a Phil or Peter there in Western Australia who believed in me and helped me keep pushing through all the stuff I was going through as I entered that market, yeah, that helps, in addition to all the strength and the grit and the resilience that I talk about. But I guess our advice to our young gems is you need to surround yourself, coming back to the naysayers, and there are plenty of them. You've got to kind of cut them out, because I can assure you people try to pull you down. People don't like others' successes. I've experienced firsthand, people are uncomfortable with, you know, if you're deemed to be successful, you're deemed to be going out there and putting yourself on the line, and by doing that, you're putting your head up people don't like that. People don't want to see that all the time, which is really sad. But you have a core around you, and that is what helps you get through.
You know, they call that tall poppy, don't they, in Australia? But it's certainly not just in Australia, everywhere in the world, isn't it? But look, Gemma, we are out of time. This is the book. For those of you who haven't read it, this is the beautiful cover, the beautiful Gemma Manning. It is now available, correct me if I'm wrong, Gemma, everywhere in the world. So it doesn't matter where you are, you can get your hands on it. You've heard a little bit from Gemma today about the story. I wholeheartedly recommend it. You know, if you want to know anything about grit and resilience and courage, or you just want a little bit of inspiration or motivation in your life, this is exactly where you're going to get it. It's never going to be too far from me, believe me, Gemma. So I just wanted to say a massive thank you from myself and on behalf of everybody that's listening today and that will listen hopefully to this conversation in the future. You are amazing, incredible, inspirational and motivational, and we all thank you.
I told you I would have some tears at some point. So the tears are starting to show. But no, thank you, Oriel. Thank you for your support as well. You're a trusted friend, colleague. I couldn't have done this with anybody else. It's me bearing it all. And thank you for making yourself available to do this with me.
It's an absolute honor.
Can't wait till we can have a drink together and we're physically by. It won't be long.
Hopefully it won't be too long. International flights are opening. So thank you also to everybody with us today for sharing this journey with us. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Okay, bye.